Hey, it's Alan Sides back one more time for another question. And this is interesting. It says, what tips do you have for recording an AC piano and acoustic guitar on the same track? Sometimes I find it difficult for each of these instruments to find their space in the mix and not compete with each other. Here's my thoughts on that. First, let's look at guitar. One of the most important things about an acoustic guitar player is that if the microphone is too close, you get a ton of proximity effect and you get a whole bunch of 200 and 300 hertz, which clouds up an entire mix. It takes up too much space. The other thing is I always record my acoustic guitars in stereo. And part of the reason I do that is, apart from just it sounding bigger, is that it takes up less space. The difference between the two channels creates a clarity that a mono track filling up both sides compared to stereo track, for whatever reason, stereo track gives me way greater clarity. The other thing I'm going to comment is when I record stereo acoustic guitar, rather than putting the two microphones like this, I put them up and down. And the reason I do that is there's an optimum spot sonically where I get just the right amount of pluck and strum sound with just the amount of resonance from the whole. So typically it's somewhere between the beginning of the fretboard and that. There's a sweet spot. If I split the microphones in stereo or have them left and right, it's two very different sounds. If one's right in the center of the hole, one's close to the fretboard, they don't sound the same. But if you have them this way, the sound is exactly the same on both sides. So my stereo is an up and down, not left and right, and usually about 8 inches away from the guitar. You know, different guitars are different, but if you were too close, and you're mono, making those two changes, going stereo and backing the mics off, will make a huge difference in the clarity on the instrument. Now going to piano. One of the worst things, and I see this a lot, is people end up taking, here's the piano, and they put one mic up on the highs and one down the lows. And that's just the worst of the worst, because you have no imaging. The mics are so far apart that there's no symmetry in the sound, and the sound is totally different between here and here. It's much better to have two microphones aimed toward the hammers about 8 inches apart, a coincident pair of cardioids that are probably aimed at 20 degrees on each side, 25 degrees at angles. And I find that's a much better piano sound. So then the other question is, it's just the clarity of the piano. Is it a clear piano or is it a dark piano, and does it need some level of EQ to define it? I mean, if it's a very dark piano, it's not unusual for me. I might add with a couple of API 550As, maybe I'm going to add, 4 dB to 12K shelf, and then maybe I might do a Pro Tools EQ with 1 dB 3K broadband shelf to bring up a little clarity. So it really depends on the instrument, depends on the player. But I think going to stereo guitar, backing the microphones off, going to a close coincident pair of cardioid microphones on the piano, and making sure that it's EQ'd correctly should correct your problem. You should have good definition between the two instruments. I hope that's been some help. Also, if you have a chance, please subscribe to our new YouTube video channel. I'm going to answer a ton of questions. Thanks.